complete honor to be back here with you all. The first time I met People's Action was actually in this room about 6 years ago, when the National Domestic Workers Alliance and National People's Action at the time came together to take names and kick some butt. And we're ready to do it again, are we not? So I just kind of need to see this people's wave. So can we start on the left-hand side? I need to see that wave. Can we see the people's wave? Come on, y'all, let me see it. Come on. Woo, woo. Come on and bring it back on this side. That was amazing. I got some news for y'all. Thank you, George, for that incredible introduction. I will take it. And if you want to see more of me and George talking about how we get rid of white nationalism once and for all, anybody ever watch that show, United Shades of America? Me and George finna be on that thing next Sunday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on CNN. Don't miss it, it's really gonna be good. All right, so yesterday, as I was preparing for this conversation, I turned on the television and learned that a gunman had opened fire in a synagogue, killing one and injuring 3 other people. The shooter was 19 years old, armed with an assault rifle and the belief that Jews seek to destroy the white race. Earlier this week, a 34-year-old man drove his car through a crowd of people that he believed were Muslims. And as a result, a 13-year-old girl is in critical condition and she's in a coma. All of these tragic events happened in my home state of California, which is known as a progressive bastion as compared to the rest of the nation. You see, it would be too simplistic, too idealistic to say that these incidents are isolated. They're not. In fact, these violent incidents are endemic to how our country functions. You see, America was built on violence. America was steeped in white supremacy. And America was predicated on theft and genocide. Now, most of how we understand race and class and gender and all these categories in this country, it's through a lens of mean people and nice people, good people and bad people. When we hear about gunmen shooting up mosques and synagogues, or opening fire in black churches, or setting churches on fire, we shake our heads and we lament that those are bad people who aren't like the rest of us. When black people who are unarmed, not just with weapons, but unarmed with the political power that could change how safety happens in our communities. When black people are executed on video for the entire world to witness, we say that most officers are good people, but this one clearly is a bad person. We imagine that one day a world will come about where nobody sees color. And yet those of us who are of color, who are anything but the control against which everything else is measured, we just want to be free to be our full selves and not be killed or disenfranchised or otherwise oppressed because of it. People call for unity because we already know that in theory, we are stronger together than we are in our small fiefdoms. Some of us bemoan identity politics because we think that focusing on race or anything else that highlights our differences is tearing us apart. But I would argue, however, and argue forcefully, that a focus on what makes us different and an understanding of why we should care about that, why we should honor and celebrate and uplift that, might be the only thing that will put us and this country back together again. You see, identity politics is a buzzword that has been used to mock the ways that our movements have fought to make America face the contradictions of its own existence. From pundits on television news shows to candidates who are seeking elected office, identity politics gets used pejoratively, that means badly, as a way to describe what happens when America is held to account for the distance that exists between who it claims to be and who it actually is. But we have to remember people's action, that identity politics was coined by working class black women like Barbara Smith, who demanded to be seen as a whole person deserving of dignity. Black, lesbian, woman, working class, all at the same time. Our sister Barbara argued that we cannot separate what we fight for and what we fight against from our experiences of what it has meant to stay alive in this country. Identity politics was and still is a way for us to understand how our lives are shaped by the categories that were developed to assign power to some and keep power from others. And so when I say that I am black, it should help you to understand that my life is shaped by the color of my skin, and that the color of my skin has assigned me a lack of power in relationship to those with white skin. When I say that I am a woman, it should help you to understand that my life is shaped by my gender, and that my gender has assigned me a lack of power in relationship to those who are men. When I say that I am queer, it should help you to understand that my life is shaped by my sexuality, and that my sexuality has assigned me a lack of power in relationship to those who are heterosexual. And when I say that I am black, queer, and woman all at the same time, you should understand that my life is being shaped by my race, by my gender, by my sexuality, and by many other factors, all at the same time. That's right. We are all being shaped by categories that have been developed by those in power to keep themselves in power and to keep others away from it. Some of these categories serve to fool us into believing that some of us are better than others. Categories like race and gender and sexuality and disability and class, all of these are hierarchies that have been set up by people in power to keep their power and to indicate where on the spectrum of power other people are. When we attach traits to those categories, Mexicans are rapists, black people are criminals, poor people are lazy, Muslims are terrorists, it helps to reinforce those power hierarchies. More importantly, there are decisions that are being made about people and what they should have access to and what they should not, who should make decisions and who should not, and those decisions matter. They are the strategies of our opposition to villainize people, to make them undesirable in our society and incapable of making the decisions that impact our lives. So when we look away from those categories, when we ignore what is happening right before our eyes, we allow the people who are currently in power to stay in power. When we look away from identity politics. We look away from the very people who must be a part of our movements in order for our movements to be powerful. Now you see, and I know y'all know, there's a power struggle happening in this country right now. It is our job to avenge the birthright of every single person in this nation. To live well, to live free, to live with dignity, to be able to see your children grow up to be adults, and maybe one day have families themselves. That is what identity politics is. It is a demand that the ways in which our lives have been shaped by power and the powerful no longer get ignored. Now, you and I got work to do, because our freedom is at stake at the same time that it is within our grasp. Yes, we must be concerned about the gunmen who create carnage in synagogues and black churches and mosques across the nation. And we must also be concerned about turning away from the carnage that we can create inside of our own movements when we dismiss and disappear the experiences of those who are marginalized, oppressed, or worse yet, those who accuse the marginalized of them themselves being racist just by talking about race, or being sexist just by talking about misogyny and patriarchy, or being homophobic just for talking about homophobia, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so, if there is unity to be built, which I unequivocally know that there is, we have to build our unity not just on how we want the world to operate, not just on how we want the world to be. Our unity must also be around our commitment to never again allow ourselves to be seduced by the notion that leaning into our differences is what divides us. We must never again delude ourselves into thinking that the only thing we can unite around is taking down the 1%. We must also take down the patriarchy. We must also take down white supremacy. We must also take down ableism. We must also take down poverty. We must also take down xenophobia. We have to take down each and every barrier that serves to divide us. Now, People's Action, part of taking these barriers down is acknowledging that they exist in the first place, that they shape our lives in ways that are destructive to our communities and to our planet, and that just because one of us may not be impacted in the same way doesn't mean that all of us are not impacted by their very existence in the first place. But we cannot simply just take down. We have to build. Taking down these barriers requires building new structures, new practices, new ways of being that finally get it right. Building new ways of being that can close the gap between who America says it is and who America can be today. That is why we are here together this week, People's Action, taking down the barriers between us by looking at them squarely in the face and acknowledging that our opposition tried to pull one over on us, but we will not be fooled and we will not be moved. Building new practices that bring equity and safety and dignity and real justice to our communities. Now, I believe I know that identity politics is in fact a gift that will save us all, if only we would get out of our own way and let it do the work it was supposed to do. People's Action, I believe in us. I believe in our ability to build the world that we deserve, and it starts with us looking at each other squarely in the face, no matter how hard, how uncomfortable, how painful it might be, and saying to one another, I see you. I believe you, I am with you, and I will never turn away from you again. Thank you.